I genuinely think one of the darkest stages of narcissistic abuse often begins after the relationship ends. And the reason I say that is because when a narcissist loses emotional control over you, they usually start looking for the last thing they still can control. And for many, and very often, the last thing they control is money. And that's where we lead on to financial abuse. Now, before I start, I just want to say this, and I want to say this very clearly. Not every difficult separation is narcissistic abuse. Breakups are emotional, divorces are messy, and people get hurt. But this video is specifically about relationships where control, manipulation, and punishment became part of the financial dynamic after the separation. And I think a lot of people watching this are going to feel deeply seen by the conversation we're about to have. Because some of you did not just leave a relationship. I feel some of you sat there feel more like they escaped one. And the second you finally emotionally detached and the dynamic changed and the control was lost by them, the financial abuse probably started to begin. Now I want you to imagine this scenario just for a second. You've spent years with somebody. Maybe you stayed home with the children. Maybe you sacrificed your career. Maybe you relocated for them. Maybe you supported their growth while slowly losing your own independence. And during the relationship, they may have even encouraged that dynamic by saying, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." Or they might say, "You don't need to work. We're a team." But the second the relationship ends, the second you leave, that very same person suddenly starts acting like supporting you is some outrageous burden. And honestly, this is where many victims get completely blindsided, because they thought the relationship ending would finally bring peace. Instead, the control simply changes form. Now, the weapon becomes delays, money, lawyers, paperwork, threats, confusion, and financial fear. And what makes this so psychologically damaging is that financial abuse after separation is often hidden inside legal behaviour. That's why victims struggle so much to explain it to other people. Because from the outside, people just see two people that are arguing over money. However, underneath it, there is one person who is often trying to regain the power from the other one. And narcissists understand something very, very deeply. If they can make your survival feel unstable, your nervous system stays attached to them. That's why some narcissists drag things out endlessly for years. And it's not because they can't settle, because your stress becomes their emotional leverage in this situation, and some of them even enjoy it. One of the biggest mistakes victims make is expecting fairness from somebody operating through control. A healthy person going through separation might still feel hurt, angry, or emotional. That's normal. But they still usually want a resolution eventually. A narcissist often wants dominance. And that really does change everything. Because now the goal is no longer, how do we move forward from this? Healthy people still want to get back together and things like that. Some sort of move forward. The goal with a narcissist becomes, how do I keep control? That is why some narcissists suddenly become unbelievably petty over money. Money they never cared about during the relationship. So it might be small amounts, tiny percentages that mean a lot to you but nothing to them. Something that will raise a pointless argument. And victims sit there thinking, this cannot possibly be about the money anymore. And obviously sometimes it is, but honestly, a lot of the time, it's actually not about the money. This whole scenario is a punishment. It's a punishment towards you, because narcissists often experience your independence as betrayal, and that's why they want to punish you, especially if you were the one who emotionally detached first. Especially if you stop chasing, stop begging, stopped reacting emotionally, that is when many narcissists panic internally, because control was the glue holding the whole relationship together. And once emotional control starts to disappear, financial control becomes their backup system that they do have control over. Now, just quickly, by the way, if you're new here, my name's Brandon. I have over 1 million people follow my daily insights across all my social media channels. And if you're finding this video helpful, just click like. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know what you found helpful in the comments. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and I'll reply to you. And if you feel like doing so, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Now, one thing I really need is people to understand this. Financial abuse after separation is not always obvious aggression. Sometimes it can look incredibly calm. It'll be calculated, it'll be quiet, it'll be strategic, and it'll be over a long term. A narcissist might intentionally delay payments. They will ignore emails. Oh, it went into spam. They will forget paperwork. They will purposefully hide assets or change paperwork or slow things down. Suddenly claim financial hardship while still living comfortably, or constantly threaten court action because they know the stress alone exhausts you emotionally. And one of the saddest parts of all of this is a lot of victims eventually give up fighting for what they deserve because they become mentally drained. Not because obviously they did anything wrong whatsoever, but because they are just exhausted and they want to detach from that person. And narcissists know this. They know prolonged stress weakens people, especially empathetic people that don't want this sort of negative energy in their life, especially people already traumatized from the relationship itself. And honestly, this is why so many survivors end up accepting far less than they should financially. And it's not because they're weak or because they don't stand up for themselves. It's because peace starts to feel more valuable than it just being fair. Now, here's something else I think people really need to hear. If you were, let's just say you were a stay-at-home mother or somebody who supported the household emotionally while sacrificing your own financial independence, you were still contributing massively to that relationship. And yes, obviously it could be a stay-at-home father, because I know what you'll say in the comments. Raising children is work. Supporting somebody emotionally is work. Running a household is a 24/7 job. A narcissist often rewrites history after separation to make the victim feel dependent or lazy, because if they can destroy your confidence, they can regain psychological advantage. And this is why financial abuse can feel so even humiliating at times, because it attacks survival itself. It doesn't just attack your emotions. It creates fear around things such as housing, food, children, stability, and your future. That's why so many victims stay emotionally trapped long after separation, because every financial interaction reopens the trauma bond. Now, I also want to talk about prevention, because this is something that many people ask me, because this part matters, and it should really matter to you. If you are currently with somebody and they're showing strong narcissistic traits, please understand this and understand it very early. Financial independence is simply emotional protection. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. You shouldn't feel guilty about it. Always know where money is. Always understand accounts. Always understand debt. Always keep access to important documents. Always maintain some form of independence where possible. Because one thing narcissists rely on heavily is informational imbalance. If you do not understand the finances, you become easier to control through fear. And if you're already separated from a narcissist, one of the most important things you can do is stop expecting emotional fairness from them. And I know that's hard to hear. That mindset, that shift in mindset will change everything. Because once you realize this person is trying to regain control, not create peace, their behaviour starts making far more sense emotionally. Now also, I want to say this carefully because I think many people need to hear it. Sometimes the narcissist is not actually trying to win anything financially. Sometimes they're trying to make sure you lose emotionally. That's why they will spend ridiculous amounts on lawyers just to drag things out. They want the win, they don't want peace. Or they might refuse responsible arguments that would benefit everyone because the emotional chaos itself actually becomes rewarding to them, especially if they're starting to feel rejected by you, especially if you're the one that left first, especially if you stopped emotionally feeding them, potentially even a long time ago. And honestly, I think one of the hardest things survivors go through is realizing the person they built a life with is willing to financially destabilize them purely out of resentment. And that's very hurtful to hear, especially when there's children involved, because healthy love, even if it's going to end, protects. Whereas control, people trying to control you, is a punishment. And I really want people listening to this to understand something very, very important. If somebody is trying to destroy your stability because they lost access to controlling you, please remember that is not love. That is emotional possession. It doesn't matter what they say, what late night texts they send. And healing from this requires more than just legal recovery. It requires rebuilding your sense of safety again. You need to heal. You need to build up your confidence, your independence, your ability to trust yourself financially and emotionally. You've got this. And I know some of you listening right now will be in the middle of this. Financial abuse you'll feel terrified, exhausted, constantly anxious every time your phone goes off. But listen to me clearly right now. A narcissist making your life difficult financially does not mean they are more powerful than you. It often means control is the only thing they have left, so you're nearly there. Eventually, when you stop reacting emotionally, stop begging for fairness, stop trying to make them empathize, you begin emotionally leaving the system that they trapped you in. And honestly, that is usually the moment most survivors finally start to be able to rebuild their life properly and they detach. Now, if this video helped, I'm going to put another one on the screen that I think you'll find super helpful. Until next time, take care.